The Elements of Friendship, Book 1, Harmony, by Amras Fegeland. Chapter 11, Brave and True. Lyonnaise of Equestria was beautiful and as awe-inspiring after a week as it was immediately after Twilight Sparkle had arrived. The sights, the sounds, the smells. Every time she turned around, she heard, or saw, or smelled something else that astonished her. Statues of solid coral molded into the shapes of equestrian heroes. Not just Captain Nemo, but also Surf Dancer, Sand Dollar, and even, to Twilight's bemusement, Sea Simmer, were erected at regularly placed squares where mermaids and sea ponies and other equestrians could stop and rest their fins. The smells of all sorts of mermaid cuisine came from every building and cart that Twilight passed. Not just Kelp Forest cake, but also seaweed salad, lily pad lasagna, and many others that she could not even name. Large schools of sweet ponies swam about and raised their voices in song, their choral serenades filling the streets with cheer. Sea ponies are different from mermaids, Twilight remembered explaining to Spike when he first asked, on behalf of the others, in that mermaids are ponies that evolved to live underwater several megagrowths years ago, and sea ponies are highly evolved pipefish that have evolved pony-level intellect and very pony-like facial features. Though Spike seemed a little bit perplexed by this explanation, being only a baby dragon after all, he seemed to accept it. His equine companions definitely appeared to grasp it far better than he had, though Rainbow Dash did chuckle a little at Twilight's eggheadness showing. There was one very astonishing moment the day after she and her friends had arrived in Lyonnaise. She had been outside, browsing the streets of Lyonnaise. King Leo insisted that she not lock herself away in the Palace of Morse, but to mingle with the populace of the sea capital, and to assuage their fears of the sun's disappearance. Meeting and greeting scores of mermaids, sea ponies, narwhals, dolphins, and manatees. When she spotted Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy together, sitting side by side in front of a choir of sea ponies singing a slow and haunting love song. They were resting their heads against one another, and Rainbow Dash was talking far lower than Twilight had ever heard. Twilight's ears twitched as he tried to make out what was being said. Really been letting my nerves get to me, she was saying softly to Fluttershy, and I've been taking it out on you. I really shouldn't have been letting all this nighttime eternal and elements of harmony junk get to me, and I really shouldn't be using you as my vent. I'm sorry. I forgive you, Dashie, Fluttershy breathed, and Twilight was floored by the affection she heard in that voice. Rainbow Dash turned her head toward Fluttershy and kissed her under the ear. Besides, I shouldn't need to use you as an outlet. That's what Twilight's for. Hey! Twilight's hooves flew under her mouth as soon as the word was out. The sea pony choir continued to serenade, but Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash turned on the spot and, respectively, hid her face behind her hooves and mane and crossed her forelegs crossly. Any pony teach you not to eavesdrop, T.S.? Rainbow Dash said with a cooked grin. Twilight stammered slightly, not quite anticipating her having been caught flat-hoofed like this. Recovering with a shaky head, Twilight narrowed her eyes slightly at the silent Pegasus. When exactly were you planning on letting me know? Know what? Rainbow Dash asked, in mock obliviousness. That you two were dating, Twilight said simply. I mean, it's been plain as day that you two have a thing going on, but... Rainbow Dash shrugged, before throwing a foreleg around Fluttershy's shoulder. Immediately, the timid Pegasus slacked slightly, resting a forehoof on Rainbow Dash's, the pair blushing pink. We're not dating, Twilight, Rainbow Dash began. Fluttershy smiled brightly, whiter than Twilight had ever seen on her face. We're engaged. That's even more of a reason to let me know! Twilight blurted out. Sorry if we don't keep you up to date on our entire life stories, T.S. Jeez! Rainbow Dash drawled, with a flippant hoof waving. I don't know if I'm quite ready to let Ponyville know, Fluttershy said softly. Could you please keep it to yourself when we get back? Twilight offered a slight smile. Of course. Take your time with it. It's just surprising is all. You two are just so different from one another. Well, Rainbow Dash gave Fluttershy a short little tightening of her hug, prompting a tiny for the timid Pegasus. Maybe we just have a lot to offer each other. And, well, if you don't mind me saying, Twilight pressed on, you've been, well, you're very impatient with Fluttershy at the best of times. Fluttershy hid behind her mane, and Rainbow Dash's face darkened. I'm not proud of it. This whole adventure's been getting to me. I can't fly about like I want, ever free as an ever-free cloud. I have to lay low and take it slow. She gave a sad grin. You know all too well that ain't me, T.S. Yeah, that has been abundantly clear, Twilight said shortly, before smiling again. Anyway, I'm really happy for you two. Congratulations. Did you two have a date set for the wedding? Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy both shook their head. And get dolled up in some frilly doohickey that would make Rarity blush? Don't have time for it. And I just can't stand this crowd of ponies. Rainbow Dash smirked. So, the day for the wedding is basically whenever I could get enough Pegasi to move my house over Fluttershy's. Well, of course, Twilight replied. It's your prerogative to let ponies know when you're ready. And, well, this journey might help you get together some nerve to let every pony know. I guess, Fluttershy said softly, tugging at her mane with a pair of finny forehoofs. What about the others? Rainbow Dash looked down at Fluttershy, and their eyes met. Fluttershy smiled and nodded slightly. We'll tell him, Rainbow Dash said with a smile. We'll tell him before we leave for Zebraland. Gotcha? Got it. True to her word, Twilight did not breathe a word of the unexpected arrangement to any of her companions. For her part, it was not difficult. She was no gossip, unlike so many hooflickers who she had become acquainted with back in Canterlot. She merely took in the sights around Leonese and acquainted herself with everyone around the capital. It turned out that the oceans themselves were becoming incredibly unbalanced because of the sheer cold on one half of Harmonia and the sweltering heat on the other. Sea creatures acclimated to certain water conditions began to migrate in search of new seas to call home, and battles would break out between schools which met in the same spot. The sun-seared side of the planet was producing powerful storms above the warming ocean waters, threatening coastal civilizations on every continent. King Leo was doing his best to even out the temperatures worldwide with his inborn control over the tides, but there was only so much that he could handle on his own. And this is just what Twilight gathered from mingling with the Equestrians and all ocean folk who called Leonese a home, permanently or otherwise. She and her band continued to keep updated on the events transpiring through Pinky's gumball radio. Pinky, Twilight asked hesitantly, How is that not dissolved into seawater? Pinky says Twilight loudly, Shh! Don't notice it, don't question it, otherwise it won't work. Twilight stammered somewhat as he tried to compose a rebuttal. But when the gumball radio sparked to life in the seawater anyway, she decided to put it on the shelf in the library she kept in her mind of all the nonsense sayings Pinky seemed capable of, and resolved to worry about this later. Through the radio, Twilight learned that migrations were unfolding on the surface world as well. Entire cities of folks of all races on both hemispheres of the planet were emigrating from their homes and established homes as close to the twilight border of the day and night. The host of Daydreams with a DJ colloquially referred to it as the Twilight Zone. Unfortunately, there were very few landmasses on Harmonia that intersected this Twilight Zone, one of them being Ponyville, and apparently they were becoming very densely populated. Most disturbingly, though, on the last day before they would depart from Leonese through the Equestrian Nebular System, they heard from various radio stations that many cities throughout Equestria had become locked down under martial law by Nightmare Moon's Nightmare Guard. These cities included Manhattan, Las Pegasus, Cloudsdale, Rainbow Dash swore at the sound of her hometown's name, Van Hoover, and Twilight and Applejack gasped sharply at this last, Ponyville. Well, don't that be all! Applejack snarled, her fins thrusting about and stirring up a storm of bubble. I've got half a mile to march straight on back to Ponyville and learn them nightmare guards a lesson or two of messing with the apples. Applejack, please, keep a level head on your shoulders, Twilight pleaded, attempting to sound less offended than she was. Nightmare Moon's just trying to distract us from what we have to do. You're a strong Earth pony, but we need you here with us to help us through whatever obstacles stand in our way. Applejack rubbed the top of her head, feeling for her Stetson that she had left in Ponyville, snorted bubbles out of her nose. That darn snake in the grass, Nightmare Moon. She and her guards better not lay a hoof on Apple Bloom. She gave Twilight a determined look. Twilight, I'm with you all the way.
But, Applejack!
Implored Rarity of all ponies.
You're his sister. You must be worried sick about her. I know that I am.
She sniffed, the only sign that she was crying.
Sweetie Belle.
I know, Rares. I know you're worried about your little sis. Well, it ain't easy to turn Ma back on Ma King neither. But I gotta. If I were to turn back now, I'd go back to Ponyville. I'd only be helping out Nightmare Moon, wouldn't I? It breaks my heart to leave her there to fend for herself against them ne'er-do-wells. But I wouldn't be doing this old cycle of day and night for any favors by quitting now. Rainbow Dash's cerise eyes boggled at Applejack. Thank the Maker you did so guts like that at our last Iron Pony competition. You'd be holding the title of Iron Pony right now!
You said it!
Pinkie Pie piped in, fluttering about the algae lights in Twilight City.
E.T.'s got nerves of steel, and heart of steel, and a skeleton of steel, and a liver of steel, tendons of steel, and hoofs of steel, and...
Thank you, Pinkie, Twilight said shortly, before facing Applejack again. Meeting the Earth Pony's green eyes was harder than she thought it would be. The willpower she saw in those eyes was far stronger than she had ever seen in any pony else's eyes at any point in her life. She felt herself quailing slightly. Was this what Fluttershy's stare was like?
Applejack, you understand what this means, right? You might never see your family again. Or you might end up dying trying to take down Nightmare Moon. If you want to turn back now, now's the time. I won't fault you.
Applejack did not blink, nor even stir from her position. I'll know. And if I can go back to my grave, know that my family will be able to live under the sun and moon, then I'll have no regrets. We apples pride ourselves on being loyal to the core, and I'm not going to let myself falter my duty for even an instant. My place right now, until Nightmare Moon is thrown down, is right at your side, Twilight.
Twilight's lips quivered, salty tears joining the salty seawater around them, as she threw her finned forelegs around Applejack's neck. Applejack! You're such a brave friend.
Applejack patted Twilight's back with a sad smile. I will be my pa's little girl if I turn back before the job's done, Twi.
As Twilight's friends crowded around the scene with teary smiles,
Rainbow Dash tried to hide her teariness.
they missed a crimson light glimmering through the seam of Applejack's saddle sails. The morning of their 7th day at Leonese came to pass, and each of Twilight and Spike, and each of their 5 companions, were gathered from their rooms in the guest wing of Morse. Curiously, Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy were found to be sharing a room together, and that was what prompted the revelation that floored every pony in the band. Except Twilight.
Goodness gracious, darlings! Congratulations!
Rarity said with an obvious joy.
I simply must decide your wedding status when the day comes. Oh, you really don't have to, Rarity.
Fluttershy replied softly, rubbing a finny foreleg with her other forehoof.
We're not really planning on anything.
What? Pinkie shouted in dismay.
Not even a wedding party?
Leonia reception? Applejack quit.
That too, but getting married?
Pinkie squished her face between her forehoofs.
2 of my best friends are getting married!
Rainbow Dash tightened her forelegs whole on her fiancé's torso. Pinkie Pie, we're not exactly bosom buddies with you. You're a good pranker, I get it, but you're pretty weird. Pinkie made upside-down eye contact with Rainbow Dash, which was weird because she was standing on the floor. She beamed.
Oh, silly Dashy! I'm best friends with every pony in Ponyville!
Well, you ain't in Ponyville still, Sugar Cube, replied Applejack, before pacing to Pegasus with a broad smile. Well, Arby, I'm happy for the both of y'all, but I gotta say, I'm kinda surprised. Rainbow Dash gave Applejack a thin smile. Leave it to the second most honest pony in Ponyville to be my buzzkill. No, Rainbow. I couldn't be happier.
It's still like, I never saw the Alicorn each other all that much.
Who are you, my mom? You were just too fast for you to catch up to us, apple snack.
Applejack looked down at her host. I suppose.
But can we pretty please start your wedding party when you decide to tie knot? Well,
Fluttershy looked conflicted.
please, without Sapphire whipped cream on top.
Rainbow Dash sighed and slowly nodded, looking down at Fluttershy. The timid yellow Pegasus brought her cyan eyes to meet up to her fiancé Cerise eyes. She bobbed her head,
Yes.
and Pinkie immediately put a hoof in the air with a loud cheer. To her credit, though, Applejack insisted that most every pony in their band not badger Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy about their relationship, because it would make them become too self-conscious about themselves, especially Fluttershy. Twilight admired this in Applejack, but she herself could not help but wonder about her two Pegasus compatriots' relationship herself.
How can two ponies be friends if they're affianced?
She thought. I mean, my parents were very close from when Vati first came over from Germany, but did they stay friends after they got married? Does friendship end with two ponies marry? Or is friendship just another part of marriage?
Allow me to answer that for you, Twilight.
Yes. Friendship is just another part of marriage. She shook her head vigorously.
No, Twilight, stop thinking like that. Queen Celestia tells you that making friends is very important. I still don't see why, but
I guess facing the struggle alone would be far worse.
I'm not in this fight to end a marriage partner out of my comrades and hosts. I'm just trying to work together. Keep the peace, so that we can take down Nightmare Moon as best friends.
At this last thought, and the smile it brought her to her face, and the warmth to her heart, gave Twilight pause.
Wait. Are these ponies my best friends?
I don't have any friends back home in Canterlot, so I guess they're my best friends. They're my only friends, granted, but they're still my best friends.
Soon enough, the band of 7 stood before King Leo's throne once more, and the sea lion smiled openly upon them.
My little ponies,
He began lowly.
in just a few hours' time, the sorrow of Melon's effects should wear off. You 6 will return to being normal ponies once more.
And I can get this bubble off my head!
Spike said brightly. Though he took to the bubble initially, he now found the distorting effect it had on his voice grating. King Leo chuckled shortly.
Yes, quite. Now, my aides have provided you surface food to each of your leggings, and they have been packed into your saddle cells along with your other belongings. It should keep even in the great heat of Ponyville under the perpetual morning sun.
Thank you, Leo.
Twilight said with a happy bow.
Now, time is passing. You shall join me in my personal chariot as I escort you to Leonese the Barculus station. I shall front your pay to get to Pamelia's eastern coast. I shall expect you will find breakfast foods of your choice at the local shops. But do not dawdle. I would be remiss if one of you were to drown.
King Leo's personal chariot was crafted from numerous seashells of different types of sea creatures now long extinct. It had been his transport of choice since before Nightmare Moon's banishment, and was partly a gift from 2 equestrian queens. It was large enough to seat Leo and 10 guests comfortably, and was usually drawn by 6 mermares or 6 sea ponies. Twilight and her pony companions looked up at the passing sea scrapers of Leonese as the chariot crossed the sandy streets, the Levanthian silhouette of Captain Nemo visible beyond the buildings as he patrolled the perimeter of the capital. It seemed as though every pony and every one in Leonese had turned out to see Queen Celestia's heroes off. Sea ponies' choruses rose up and sang songs of encouragement and victory. Dolphins gave great leaps over the chariot as it passed by and gave cheers of joy. Manatees waved fins brightly at those in the chariot with the king. Narwhals pointed their horns straight toward the surface as a show of solidarity. Narwhal ponies shot streams of boiling water above them. Sail fins twirled into the air with vigor. Gazing back at Morse, Twilight cocked an eyebrow. She distinctly recalled that only 2 of the 5 augur spires about the edges of the castle had been lit when they had arrived in Leonese. Now a third
was peaked with a glimmer of light, this one bright red. The lavender unicorn screwed up in her mind in perplexity. What did this entail? Had 3 of them been lit up when they arrived, but Twilight had not noticed the red light? And if not, what brought it forward? "Hey, look!" Spike said, peering over the railing at the mermares drawing the chariot. "It's the mermares who brought us down here!" Tossing her ruminations aside, Twilight took a second look at the mermares pulling King Leo's chariot, and she was pleasantly pleased to recognize Wavebreaker and his band. Taking a moment to turn his head, he flashed a knowing smile at Twilight and her friends, before he returned his attention to drawing the chariot. Seeing such joy in the face of crossing darkness gave Twilight a fiery shoot of courage to her heart. Nightmare Moon was a dreadful foe. Only Queen Celestia and the elements of harmony could stand against her. But with such large numbers dissenting her bitter heart, there could only be victory. In what seemed like no time at all, they had arrived at a rather large, broad building of coral. The molded coral words over the great archway spelled out, "Grand Leonese Transportation Center." Every so often, a large transport of sea sails emerged from the rooftop and departed for parts beyond Leonese. Wavebreaker and his friends slid to a halt with a whinny of peace, and King Leo disembarked along with Twilight and her friends.
"I thank you, my friends,"
King Leo said as he passed Wavebreaker and his man.
"You are very welcome, your highness,"
replied Wavebreaker. King Leo addressed Twilight and his band.
"Follow me."
Passing through the archway into the Grand Leonese Transportation Center, Twilight and her friends found themselves in a great space filled with fronds wide enough to allow mermares to trot along with their forelimbs in a queue, leading up to numerous chariots and transports lined up along the four walls. A large ticker sign stood erect over the kiosks in the middle of a grand chamber. A good 3 or 4 dozen different arrivals and departures passing by in rapid sequence upon the board.
Goodness gracious!
Verity gasped.
It's like it's smaller on the outside!
Pinky gaped.
"It does seem that way, does it not?"
King Leo replied.
"Now, there are refreshment stands along the way to the narbercular terminal at the back. Take what you want, but do not dally. I want to make sure you are on your way to Ponyville shoreline before your time is up."
King Leo drew the eyes of scores of awed Equestrians as he led the band through the milling schools. Passing by each food stand, the band was offered whatever food that was stocked, free of charge by reason of the accompanying king. Twilight turned down most of what was offered to her, but she found out that she could not turn down a water lily and kelp sandwich. Her friends were a bit more accepting of the free foodstuffs being offered. Piggy Pie particularly gladly took anything that anyone put in front of her, swallowing it without chewing before taking the next food item. In a matter of minutes, they crossed the transportation center floor, reaching a broad entryway through which small schools of equestrians of all sorts were passing into and out of. A sign reading "Narbicular Arrivals and Departures" hung over the entryway, formed from orange and blue algae inlaid in that stone. King Leo approached the dolphin, manning the booth under the sign, and said,
7 tickets for the Western Ponyville coast, please. I shall cover the costs."
The dolphin nervously saluted with a fin, and replied,
Ain't nothing of it, your majesty.
He quickly rifled around in a shelf behind his booth, and produced 7 hoof-sized pearls. Rarity's eyes boggled, which King Leo passed back to each of his 7 escortees.
No charge here.
But I insist.
King Leo pressed, producing a small purse from under his cape with his swimmer shimmer, and levitating a small number of 2-sized sea sails into the dolphin's booth.
What sort of king would I be if I did not help keep the wheels of the economy spinning, international crisis or otherwise?
The dolphin smiled nervously at the king as he passed by into the narbicular terminal, with Twilight and company at his tail.
These pearls are simply gorgeous,
Verity squealed, twisting her pearl back and forth in her swimmer shimmer.
It's just a shame we'll have to give them right back at the other end. That's how they will work, right?
You would indeed be right, ma'am,
replied a manatee, waiting ahead of them. He floated in the middle of a great circular room, with squared-off alcoves in the stone walls. On the facing walls of each alcove was a glowing circle, tall enough for Nightmare Moon to stride through, with room to spare, and just as wide. On the left hoof side the circles glowed blue, and the right orange. Various equestrians passed through the glowing blue circles, or emerged from the glowing circles, apparently vanishing into the other space on the other end, or appearing from out of nowhere.
this, fiendish and codes,
The manatee explained.
is the Equestrian Arbicular System. These spatial portals, developed from the unique magical capabilities of a surface beast known as an Arbiculus, enable any key, or anyone, to pass through from one point to another thousands of knots away in an instant, without swimming the distance at all.
Wow.
Gaped Pinkie Pie, before squealing enough loudly to shatter glass.
Now you're thinking with peas, Pinky!
Twilight interrupted. This could be very important! The manatee gave Twilight a mightily thankful look before continuing, occasionally gesturing the Namercular system.
You see, the magic is rarely steady, so the arbicular system has no chance of closing while you are partway through it. However, I would not advise dilly-dallying. This is a public transportation system. Is this the first time using the arbicular system?
He gulped slightly at the sight of his king.
Your Highness? It is. So as far as I'm aware.
King Leo explained.
Their destination is Eastern Ponyville, post haste. Ponyville? Right. That would be...
The manatee was not so neurotic as the dolphin, but he was definitely flustered with having to deal with King Leo directly. His fin passed through rows of alcoves, scanning the departures and arrival tiles before arriving at the top of each one.
There,
He said, his fin settling on one alcove that, to Twilight's memory, had not received a single departure or arrival since they had entered their chamber.
that narbicular architecture connects each equestrian narbicular terminal to Ponyville. If memory serves correctly, you should have to pass through 1,005 narbicular portals to reach Bahahari, a mermaid colony of the eastern Ponyville Sallies.
Thank you very much, sir.
Twilight said brightly.
We really appreciate your unflappable service in this endeavor.
You're welcome,
He replied.
May I ask, why do you need to get to Ponyville so quickly that you would need to pay top $1 to get there?
We're going to stop Nightmare Moon, Rainbow Dash said boldly, before Twilight could so much as open her mouth.
And we need to figure out how these elements of harmony work so we can kick our sorry flight back to the moon!
Not my moon.
The manatee replied, with wide eyes and a mortified expression.
You mean the devil of the Luna Maria? You're going to stop her? How? These fillies and this drake represent Queen Celestia of the surface realm of Equestria.
King Leo explained calmly.
My cousin Celestia has entrusted them with the only sure way to neutralize Nightmare Moon. But Queen Makia of Ponyville is the only one on Harmonia who holds the deepest secrets of the elements of harmony, who will divulge them. It is of vital importance that they reach to the Ponyville capital as soon as possible.
The manatee saluted, a new resolve appearing in his eyes and body language.
Your will is my action, Your Highness. Now, after me.
He swam briskly towards the alcove he had previously pointed out, with King Leo and Twilight, Spike, and their friends behind him.
Seems kind of edgy, doesn't he?
Rainbow Dash replied, balancing her pearl between her two back fins.
His nerves are likely because of being so close to his king,
Rarity explained.
I can only imagine any of us would be in such shape around Queen Celestia.
I doubt I would be that nervous, Rarity, Twilight said with a wry smile.
Yeah, you're right.
Rainbow Dash interjected, and Twilight did not like the smirk she was wearing.
You'd be even worse.
Twilight sighed freshly.
I'll not dignify that insinuation with a response.
Reaching the narbicular tunnel, connecting Equestria to Ponyville, Rainbow Dash said being shushed by Fluttershy. That Twilight heard. The Manatee and King Leo faced the bands of 6 mares and 1 drake on either side of the alcove.
Well, this is it,
said the Manatee, with a slight gesture of his fin.
Go now, my little ponies.
King Leo said in a low growl, his paws outstretched.
Hurry, and learn the secrets of the elements of harmony, so this night will not last forever.
Twilight smiled with a bow to the King of Equestria. Thank you, King Leo. It's been all too brief to stay here in this kingdom of yours.
What's the hold-up?
Rainbow Dash interjected. Let's go already! Twilight looked back to the king and the Manatee. As blunt as she is, she's right. Take care, King Leo! And so, Twilight Sparkle cantered briskly through the blue narbicular portal with Twilight a spike on her back and her shadow shells at her sides, with the other 5 mares in her band hot on her tail. Passing through the portal, Twilight did not feel any change in the water's pressure around her as she left Leonese and immediately entered the alcove of another transportation center somewhere elsewhere in Equestria. The narbicular quantum tunnel was infinitely thin. It was the direct opening into another space, blue light shining out in front of Twilight and orange behind. 1 down, 4 dozen to go. 4 to go.
Uncle Leo?
Pinky asked gleefully.
You didn't tell us you were part sea lion, Twilight.
3. I'm not Pinky. It's kind of an honorary title. Like how Queen Celestia was my honorary mother after 2.
Oh, sorry I asked, Twilight.
Don't be Pinky, Twilight smiled. I try not to let it bother me anymore. 1. I just hope they're all right with Nightmare Moon cracking down on Ponyville. 2.
Darn tootin' they better be.
My big brother, Big Mask, got a bit of fondness for plants and such. He'll keep lots of room. 11. Twilight smiled back at Applejack. Thanks, Applejack. Rainbow Dash stuck out her tongue.
Don't get us all sappy on us, you two.
10.
Says the only one of 2 of us who was our guides.
Applejack retorted.
Hey, Fluttershy needs a little help with assertiveness, and I got her covered in spades.
Rainbow Dash finished with a grin. 9.
Oh, Dashy.
Fluttershy nuzzled against Rainbow's neck.
You don't have to push yourself for me. I'll just slow you down.
8.
Well, some boys gotta make sure you don't fall behind the herd. And who's better than somebody as awesome as me?
7.
I dare say this is quite a discombobulated system, Twilight.
Rarity said softly.
Who in Equestria came up with this narbicular system?
6. Bitter Pineapple, a maniac Alicorn who thought time was flowing backwards and tried to get himself banished to the moon on his deathbed. Twilight explained darkly. 5. Rainbow Dash burst out laughing. It's a shame, really. Twilight continued over the Pegasus guffawing. Not every pony invention was because of ingenuity. Some were born of insanity. I mean, the Narbiculus is a terrible beast. What madness would drive a pony to study its means of capturing prey so closely? 4. 3.
No wonder it never caught on in Equestria.
Applejack mused. Twilight nodded slowly. Narbicular tunnels are stigmatized back home because of their creator.
2. Not back at Cloudsdale, Rainbow Dash cut in. There's this amusement park ride where they drop you over and over and over in these type of tunnels. They call it the Narbicular Drop.
1.
Well, we'll have to try it out sometime now, won't we, Rainbow Dash?
Twilight said sharply. But for now, 0.
We're here at Bahahari.
Well, really?
Rainbow Dash's eyes popped out over at the circular chamber of alcoves, browner and smaller than Leonese.
That was barely anything. I mean, seriously, we've only been trying for like a minute and a half. I swear, I can still kind of see that sea lion king's back in the tunnels.
She pointed a side hoof, back down the rings of orange light, and a faint glimmer of golden blue.
I must myself admit to skepticism as well, darling,
Rarity added.
These narbicular portal rings are just so off. But I would like to step outside.
Twilight felt a slight gagging at the back of her throat, and felt her fins twitching violently at her forelocks. Their time was running short.
Well, we're going to have to find out the hard way, girls,
Twilight said brusquely.
Give your pearls to the nearest attendant and get to the surface. Fast!
galloping across the stony floor with all the speed that she could gather into deep water. Twilight swiftly deposited her pearlescent proof of purchase in the fins of a mightily flustered narwhal, as it spiked from her back. She heard him swearing after them in the local Ponyville dialect, proof enough for her where they were. But time was wasting. They only had minutes to reach the surface before their gills and fins disappeared. Emerging out of the Bahahari Nabricular Terminal into the streets of the Mermere Colony off of Ponyville's eastern coast, Twilight blinked back to the beams of light shooting down from the surface. Spike cried out in astonishment at the brightness.
Oh, this place is so much brighter than Leonese,
Fluttershy commented. Because Ponyville is cut in half by the Twilight Zone, Twilight explained, already flapping her fins rapidly to try to swim to the surface. It's perpetual morning in the capital, she swore at her mate. Why can't I swim faster? She looked down at her hooves, at the fins that the siren melon leaf had given her. The fins were sloughing off her fetlocks, her lightness in the water fading away. A burning cut across either side of her throat, and Twilight's lungs screamed in protest at the followings of sea water in them. No, she thought in feeble despair, barely recognizing the sounds of her friends behind her, as they too began to feel the effects expire.
It can't end like this. We didn't come so far. Just to drown out here.
She drew Spike off her back with her glimmer shimmer, smiling sadly at the horrified little drake. The bubble cast around his head held firmly, outlasting their siren melon transformations. At least he would live. Twilight scooped him in her forelegs, hugging her close as her eyelids shut. In the cold ocean water, the cold-blooded drake felt uncannily warm against her fur.
Oh, Spike,
she thought, not daring to speak or breathe, for that would only hasten her expiration.
I only wish that it wasn't this gruesome end that made me realize just how much you mean to me. Oh, Spike. Oh, my son. Twilight!
Her eyes shot open at the sound of Pinky's voice. Spinning around to face the earth pony, she saw every pony clutching onto each of her hooves. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy's fin wings had transformed back into their ordinarily feathered wings. Pinky was waving her tail back and forth, beckoning Twilight towards her with flicks of her head.
Come on, Twilight. Stop getting all sappy with Spike and grab my tail.
Not even bothering to question how Pinky could possibly be talking underwater after losing the siren melon's elusive effects, Twilight floundered with Spike, clutching his claws around her barrel. She sank her teeth into Pinky's tail as she caught the taste of wet cotton candy.
Okay, every pony, fasten your seatbelts!
And just like it had with the Underroot, Pinky's forelock curled around itself in a heliacal shape, spinning around rapidly, and leaving a torrent of bubbles that swirling around Twilight's face. Suddenly, Pinky took off, Twilight tightening her tooth hole on Pinky's tail for fear of slipping free and being lost in the ocean forever. She blinked as the lights in the water above her began to glow brighter and brighter. Somehow, some way, they were going to make it. They were going to Ponyville. Gasping deeply as they broke out of the salty water into the salty air, Twilight heard Rainbow Dash whooping up ahead as she clutched Pinky's right forehoof. They soared through the air over the shallows, the wind blasting them icily after a week's chill under the sea. The water flew out of her ears, as if she could hear for the first time in her life. Twilight thought that they would sail forever and land in the Elysian fields. But her face filled with even more of Pinky's sugar-scented tail as he felt gravely sand under her hooves and cannons. Coughing out water from her lungs, Twilight clasped onto her barrel and simply relished being alive.
We made it!
Applejack gasped, coughing raggedly as he finished.
I don't know how, but we made it!
Verity made a sobbing choke as he held her mane lipping.
My Maystyle didn't, though. I really do hope zebras have heads, Jen.
I don't know rattling much about zebras, but I doubt we'll find much in the way of your high-standing pirates all the way out here.
Fluttershy wrung out her mane.
I really hope that some pony finds us soon. It's a miracle we made it out here as it is.
Spike unfurled one of his claws and pricked a bubble around his head, bursting in an instant.
But how did we even get out of there anyhow?
Rainbow Dash shook herself vigorously, her mane, tail, and feathers puffing out comically as the water flew off her body, Rarity crying out in protest as the droplets came her way.
We really gotta thank Pinks for being a complete goofball in the face of physics.
Oh, I just wanted to be on my own drum,
Pinky said in a feeble attempt at sounding casual. Her mane and tail were completely slacked because of the dampness. The entire right half of her smiling face was covered by a mane that easily reached her hooves, a lanking tail curling about in almost a complete circle around her body. Then she put one of her forehooves into her mouth and blew into it, all of the ocean's dampness shooting off in an instant, and her mane and tail returning to their previous frizziness. A thought of, "That shouldn't be possible," flashed through Twilight's mind, just as Pinky pulled out a baby blue party hat from out of nowhere and plunked it on her own now dry head. And Twilight's self-enforced academia found itself thrust rudely to the side as he bolted straight to her hooves and faced the pink party pony with a furious snort, trying to ignore the white mane in her eyes. "No!" Pinky arched her eyebrows at Twilight, offering a faint smile.
What? No, Twilight.
Just no! You shouldn't be able to do half the things that you do! You can move your mane around like that like it's a whole other limb! You hug me with more legs than you have! You change color when you get upset about things! You're not even doing it right now!
Twilight angrily added, as she witnessed Pinky wilting on the spot, and shifting from pink to purple to pale blue, her mane and tail once more going slack.
It's just...
Twilight exclaimed angrily.
It's not something that ponies can do! But you can do magic too, Twilight.
Rainbow Dash cut in shortly.
And you do weird things too! No!
Twilight replied.
My magic is nothing like what Pinky does. My magic is something I've studied for years. Something that I've spent sleepless nights trying to figure out. It's something tangible that I've been working on. But what Pinky does is... It just doesn't make sense! How does she do it?
I don't know,
cried Pinky, tears sliding down her blue cheeks.
I just always been like this since the pretty rainbow.
Rainbows don't randomly give ponies special powers, Twilight growled. That's just a load of fan-rainbow for comic books. I don't know what you are, but it doesn't make sense, and I don't like things that don't make sense! Twilight, stop!
Applejack snapped, stepping between Twilight and Pinky.
Look, every single one of us has been questioning the state of things and why Pinky can do what she does, but if Pinky can't rightly explain it, then I don't see why any pony should be causing a hullabaloo over it!
Applejack gave her fellow Earth Pony a sad smile.
We mostly just think of it as Planky being Planky. But that's so unscientific! Twilight blurted out. There's no basis for anything that Pinky does in science, and you can just write it off as Pinky being Pinky? Are you interested at all the root cause of anything she does differently? So what? Pinky's just a science experiment to you then?
Rainbow Dash cut in darkly.
No!
Twilight replied, feeling genuinely hurt.
I don't think of it as all. I just want answers about what my friend could do, and we can't wait for answers to just...
Twilight trailed it off in horror, not at the looks of mingled anger and fear on her faces, but at the shadows that stretched up over them, blotting out the perpetual morning sun. The 7 stalks rose up into the sky, behind the mares, giving her such bitter looks.
Guys?
Twilight gasped, recognizing the beast.
What's wrong, Sugar Cube?
Applejack asked quizzically, casting the new look of distress on the lavender unicorn's face.
Run.
Noticing the shadows at their hooves, the other mares looked up at the creature, now looming up and out of the ocean, was retreated behind the beast. 7 mouths opened up on 7 heads at the end of 7 long necks, dripping with saliva at the sight of the band of 6 mares and 1 drake, and roared.
Roar!
Pinky shrieked in abject horror, It bolted down the beach toward a broad forest, some distance from the beach. "Run!" Twilight shrieked. They needed no telling twice. Spike hopped up onto Twilight's back. The 5 mares galloped with full abandon after the fleeing Pinky. The trees were most certainly not equestrian trees. Far more exotic were they than any of them had ever seen before. Tall and thin, but with wide, sweeping canopies to make up for broad spaces between them. The sounds of the forest were peculiar as well to any equestrian, for many birds and primates and the likes could not be found outside the forests of Ponyville. Many of them, however, were fleeing deeper inland at the sound of the 7 roars. Twilight and her band came to a halt just behind the sullen blue Pinky, not a minute's gallop from the shoreline. The beast seemed to have not pursued them, though, which was all for the best. Twilight gasped for breath, reaching out for the blue Pinky. "Are you okay, Pinky?" Pinky, looking rather docked, squeaked at the sound of Twilight's voice, before charging deeper into the brush and out of sight. "Pinky, wait!" she pleaded, before sighing. "This is all my fault. If I hadn't snapped at her, none of this would have happened." "Probably not. Rainbow!" Applejack snarled. "If you all talk out to her one more time, I'll swear I'll book you so hard that your paw back at Clydesdale will feel it!" Rainbow Dash crossed her 4 eyes suckingly as Applejack approached Twilight with narrowed eyes. "Don't let Rainbow get you down, Twilight. Raising hell between friends is just like trying to rattle a hornet's nest. It won't end pretty." That's the thing," Twilight said, getting back to her hose and trotting after Pinky's trail. "I was shouting at Pinky about something I knew nothing about. I made one of my only friends cry, and I almost got us all eaten by a water lord."
A water lord?
Verity inquired.
I thought that was a hydra back there.
"A water lord is a Ponyville ocean-dwelling hydra," Twilight explained, moving from a trot to a canter. "It uses its magic powers to cast a draught on a nearby foliage to smoke its prey out. They hate going inland, though, so we should be safe." She looked back ahead, deeper into the forest. "But we still need to find Pinky, fast, before something else finds her." "Something else?" Spike asked fearfully from Twilight's back. "What else is there in these forests?" "I'd rather not talk about them," Twilight said softly. "I just want to find Pinky and apologize to her as much as I can. She saved our lives, and how do I repay her? By snapping at her! I'm such a horrible friend!" Twilight wailed, her voice echoing off each tree trunk. Behind Twilight, Fluttershy put a hoof to Rainbow Dash's mouth to hold back the inevitable retort.
Some friendships are rougher than others, darling.
Verity interjected sagely.
Why, take Applejack and myself, for instance. I would not say that we ought to be close, but I would be loath to shut her out for any reason at all. What sort of mare would I be to rout out a fellow pony villager?
Applejack smiled warmly at the alabaster unicorn. "I'll feel the same way, Rarity." Spike sighed, looking dreamily back at Rarity.
Oh, isn't she just wonderful?
"Girls, wait!" Twilight stopped, putting a hoof to the side and motioning ahead. "I see light! There must be a village!"
And a village means...
Fluttershy said in a rising voice. "Food!" Rainbow Dash cried. "Folks!" shouted Applejack.
Liberates!
Rarity called. The 5 mares went forth at a full gallop, with whoops of joy. The trees on either side, thinning out as the path they followed began to brighten, and the brush became less dense. Sounds of wildlife around them also began to dwindle, but they cared not, for soon they would meet zebras. The trees stretched out to either side as they entered a wide red earth plain, and about this plain were scattered many straw-hosed adobes lined up in rows and columns for at least a mile in each direction. Vines and creepers grew up along each building's facade, even across some empty doorways, and the general atmosphere was of desolation. Fluttershy's ears flattened,
I don't like the looks of this place.
Rainbow Dash unfurled one of her wings and laid it across her fiancé's back. I've got a bad feeling about this. Twilight looked about anxiously.
This isn't right. The village looks like no zebras lived here for weeks. I would only hope that this place was not so ill-killed by zebras still lived here.
Ugh, Verity shuddered. Applejack leaned close to Twilight. Do you reckon some zebras still live here? Twilight shook her head.
I doubt it. But we still need to find Pinky. It's my fault she ran off, and...
She wiped away a tear.
If we have to stick together and find her!
With this goal clear in their minds, the band trotted cautiously into the old zebra village. Twilight's earlier assessment of the village being unlived and seemed to be much more accurate the further they trekked into it. There were upturned water basins and bright bits of saddle here and there in the streets, as though the zebras who called this village home had vacated it very quickly. Where do y'all think Planky could have gone? Applejack asked quietly.
I have no idea.
Twilight replied in a hushed tone.
Hey! Pinky!
Screamed Rainbow Dash, with her hose cupping her muzzle.
Get your ballooning butt back here!
Applejack yanked the Pegasus down by the tail and covered her mouth with a hoof, but silence greeted them. Each of the mares braced themselves for some inevitable threat descending on them from the surrounding streets, but nothing.
As cliché as it sounds,
Verity cut in,
this village is entirely too quiet.
Verity's right, Twilight said, undoing the spell matrices for defensive spell work within her Alicorn.
You'd think there would be something that would have been roused by Rainbow Dash's shout, but...
Rainbow Dash flew up straight into the sky, hovering at least 4 dozen hooves over the nearest building. She put a hoof above her eyes to block out the sun as she scanned the village from on high, looking for something, anything, that would point them into the direction of Pinkie Pie or some zebras.
"See anything up there, Rainbow?"
Applejack called up.
"Negatory on that, AJ!"
she said when she flew back down.
"I didn't see anything around town. Pinkie Pie or not Pinkie Pie. She's probably crying in some corner somewhere and... Wait!"
Fluttershy squeaked, her ears flapping like mad.
"Do you hear that?"
Every pony else swiveled their ears about, Spike looking around in confusion, cupping his claws around his auditory spines.
"I hear it too."
Twilight breathed. A faint chorus of high laughter was emanating from every building around them, as though there was some great private joke being shared by great many sun ponies, or some zebras. But the laughter came to an abrupt halt as several wretched bird squawks emanated from various points around the village. But they were not bird calls. Rather, more like sun ponies mimicking bird calls. The village remained silent for several moments, but then the laughter resumed in earnest, and shades began to move in the doorways and windows of the seemingly empty houses. "Guard yourselves, girls," Twilight hissed, her alicorn openly glowing now. Verity followed suit, with a periwinkle twinkle. Applejack dug her hose into the earth. Spike bared his claws, and Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy flared up into the air, their forelegs bared for combat. The shapes that emerged from the doorways were of equine shape, with black and white stripes on their bodies. Their manes were exceptionally straight, like mohawks, and their tails were long and leonine like unicorns. Some had 2 alicorns in the middle of their foreheads, and others had feathered wings and a pair of antlers.
"Zebras," Twilight gasped. "So, this village was populated after all."
She turned to face her party, the tension in the air lessening at the meeting of zebras.
"Okay, girls, I'll try to talk to them, and see if they can take us to Neose Nauope." "You speak zebra?"
Verity asked, looking warily at the sortling herd gathering around them.
"Well," Twilight explained, "there are actually a lot of languages zebras speak. Scores of languages, actually. The way I understand it, Queen Malakia had a very loose monarchy in place, letting various city-states handle their own affairs. As such,
There is a lot of linguistic and cultural diversity throughout Ponyville. She turned to face the herd of zebras. And I happen to be rather learned in the copper zebra tongue, Idube. I just hope these villagers know what I'm saying. Twilight cleared her throat, approaching the zebras with a low-bowed head and a humble smile. Hello, my fellow equines! She spoke instead of Idube. The zebra's ears swiveled slightly at her words, as he felt a surge of hope. They understand me! We are emissaries from Equestria, and we have just arrived from the care of Equestria's King Leo. To Twilight's astonishment, the zebras began to stir dramatically at their mention of the kingly sea lion. They began to chatter back and forth at each other in a laughing tone. There was nothing like any zebra language Twilight had ever heard of. Twilight? Reba Dash said uneasily. I don't think these guys are zebras! Twilight was beginning to think the same as well. The zebras were drawing in closer and closer, the laughs becoming shriller and blood-chillingly thirsty. The zebrine appearances melted away and revealed the feral shapes of hyenas closing in around them. A fierce lion's roar erupted from beyond the village's entrance, behind the band. The hyenas instinctively huddled to the ground, whimpering. Twilight and her friends also scrunched closer together. Though they had encountered a wild lion before, the roar of the king of the jungle was something that instilled fear in anything which heard it. Spike clutched one of Twilight's legs, seeking her protection. So they leaned down and nuzzled her little ward, yearning to protect him from anything that crossed her path. The lion's roar belted out again, closer than before. Several hyenas lost their nerve and bolted deeper into the village, leaving their prey behind. Fewer than a dozen hyenas remained around them now, but they no longer had their entire attention on the 5 mares in the middle of their village. More so even than the ponies, they surrounded and outnumbered. The hyenas feared the lion above all other creatures. It was only the scarcity of food in the village that kept the bulk of them in a circle around the mares and Drake. Steeling itself, one of the hyenas lunged at Twilight, its jaw agape and saliva dripping into the mouth. Instinctively, Twilight spun in place and thrust her hind legs out in a buck. Though she did not rank very high in the annals of bucking mares, it caught the hyena by surprise, and it fell with a cackling yelp. The lion's roar echoed out a third time. Roar! Closer than ever, and even more hyenas yelped in fear and fled away. Scatter! Twilight shouted to her friends, and the 4 other mares bolted back the way they came, making for cover in various alleyways. Seeing that only 1 mare now remained, and with the lion doubtlessly on its way, what the hyenas were facing, Twilight decided to cut their losses and abandon the cause, fleeing back after the bulk of their group. All but one had gone now, and the striker let out a feline growl at Twilight. Spike clambered up onto his circuit mother's back, putting his claws around her barrel. I should have guessed that this was a Boltginian nesting ground. Twilight moved slowly to herself. Boltginin? A hyena that can make itself look like a zebra. The lords prey in. Some ponies call them mare hyenas, though. Oh, come on, Arbos. There is no way that could possibly exist. Oh, sweet baby Celestia, it exists! You know, ever since I started reading Ponyfix, I've learned more and more about the world around me. The bolt gun made another lunge at Twilight and Spike, prompting the lavender unicorn, the blast of pink lightning at it. It flew back into the wall of a mid-brick house, the wall cracking behind it as it slid off. It gave Twilight a pitiful look as she snarled at it. You leave my son alone, or you'll get worse! The hyena whimpered and limped off. Spike gaped at Twilight. Mom? Twilight turned her head to smile at the darling Drake on her back. Yes, Spike, you're my son. My precious, beautiful little boy. I don't want us to ever be apart again. Spike's jaw fell open in a smile, tears sliding down his scaly face. And he pointed past Twilight's head in horror. Twilight! Look out! Twilight spun quickly to see the oncoming jaws of a bolt gunman. It was too close to cast a spell, or to buck, and getting closer. Twilight instinctively closed her eyes. Currents! Ah! Twilight dared to peek, and what she saw astonished her. Applejack stood at her perpendicular, the hyena's jaws clenched deep into her spine. Tears fell afresh from Twilight's eyes. Applejack! Applejack gritted her teeth in a grimacing smile. Hey there, Twilight. You reckon this looks like it hurts? Twilight nodded numbly. Applejack furrowed her brow, irises glowing into a deep, earthy green. Well, compared to leaving you to die, this don't hurt at all! The spots where the Bulgarian teeth had dug into Applejack's fur began to glow green themselves, and the hyena found itself being pushed off the Ponyville by some unseen force. It tried to bite Applejack on the barrel, the cannon, the forearm, but none of its bites made the slightest nick in the earth pony's fur or hide. I'm warning you just once, you crazed varmint! Applejack growled lowly. If you don't leave now, and leave Twilight and my other friends alone, you'll be facing down the single most stubborn earth pony in all of Equestria. Applejack pulled one hind leg out of the dirt, and Twilight could swear she saw blonde fetlock strands glowing green roots before the earth pony brought that leg around and gave the Bulgarian a sharp, solid kick into the belly. The hyena creature flew down the streets and tumbled along the red earth before it scrambled back to its paws and tore off yelping into the distance. With a grunt, Applejack withdrew her other three hooves from the earth, pale blonde fetlock herbs returning to their natural hair state. That's awesome, Applejack! Spike called out with a bright, fanging smile. How did you do that stuff? Applejack shook her head with a smile of her own. 'Tweren't nothing, Spat. I just had to give that rascal the old what for trying to pull a fast one on one of my friends. But, Applejack, Twilight said softly, you're hurt. She inspected Applejack's back more closely, but was astonished to see that no blood, no torn skin, not even any hair that was more rough and tumble than Applejack's coat normally was. It was still somewhat damp from their week-long sojourn in Equestria. How is this possible? Applejack smirked. Not so learned on earth pony magic, are you? Well, so long as an earth pony's touching some earth, there ain't a beast or weapon in the world that can hurt her. But those bites there, Twilight asked, indicating the bite marks across Applejack's spine. Applejack's face darkened. That was a lucky shot. The farmer caught me off my guard. I was out of commission for a week. I was a dozen or two. She smiled, but it was worth it. I kept Apple safe from that chimera. A chimera? Yep. And I like to think doing a walk right on that leg and more. Even bleeding out of my spine. I'll fight to protect the ones I love and cherish. Applejack's eyes went dark. 'Cause I know that losing them hurt a lot more. And that's why you saved me and Spike from that hyena? You're my friend, Twilight. I couldn't just let you handle all them nasty critters on your lonesome. I'll always be there to lend you a helping hoof. Take my word for it. Twilight smiled, tears sliding down her muzzle. Applejack, she gasped. The lion! The others! We gotta go find them! Applejack looked to the edge of the village they came from, narrowing her eyes. I don't think that was a lion, Twilight. Remember their queer-sounding bird calls just as them stinking little grass hyenas came out at us? I think those weren't rattling birds either. You're right, Twilight said, scratching her stubbed chin with a cloven hoof. But if those weren't bird calls or a lion's roar, then what were they? Perhaps they came from a friendlier face. Came a voice with a heavy received pronunciation accent from a street on their left. than the one you've yet seen in this place. Zebra, at least as tall as Applejack. And a true zebra she was, for she had a longer muzzle and a cutie mark, large golden earrings in her ears. 5 golden rings around a long neck, marching on her left blue eyes shone with kindness and deep wisdom. Along with her were a number of other zebras, some with twin alicorns, some with wings and antlers, and with them were
Twilight, darling! Applejack, you're all right!
Verity called out, galloping and giving her unicorn friend a muzzle. Spike leaned forward hopefully. I see that we have reunited you with your friends, continued the zebra at the head of her group. I should hope that we can soon make amends. Twilight beamed at the zebra mare.
Thank you so much, Miss.
Zakora is the name I have carried since birth. It is a pleasant name I can carry with mirth.
Excuse me, Rainbow Dash cut in, but do all zebras talk in rhyme?
Some of the zebras around Rainbow Dash began to exclaim angrily in their native tongue, and Rainbow Dash shrank down miserably. Sakura cleared her throat and explained, You will have to forgive me for my prose, but I have an affliction which I cannot dispose. It is an embarrassing tale, one of which I am not proud, but I feel that I serve a lesson by speaking aloud.
What happened to you, Sakura?
I must learn in bustle and in plants, and of plants so different that you would plant. But there was one day that came to pass, when I neglected the lessons of agriculture class. And of bustle which I did foolishly poke, I touched a plant that which you ponies called poison choke.
Verity gasped. Oh my! And you've rhymed ever since?
The deal is not big. I have learned to cope. I have learned not to be a linguistic dope. If a rhyme for my speeches evades my brain, I am forced to suffer the greatest pain.
That sounds awful,
Fluttershy breathed. Sakura laughed, a bright sound like tinkling bells. Be not fearful, my pony friend. A simple rhyme brings the pain to an end. But no cure could be found for my condition, not even by our greatest academicians. Though at first difficult by admission, I've learned to speak more cleverly than any politician. Bravo, writer, bravo. That was awesome. Every pony and zebra present broke into laughter at this statement as a chorus.
Well, this looks like some jokes can cross cultural boundaries.
Verity tucked out between laughed. Tully's brain snapped back into a more pressing issue than zebra humor.
Wait, jokes, laughter, piggy pie! Sakura!
Twilight interjected.
Have you or our friend seen our friend Piggy Pie?
Sakura quirked an eyebrow. I know of no pony whom that name ascribes. Perhaps you could this Pinkie Pie describe.
Well, you see, Twilight began, she's normally very pink and bouncy, but I got mad at her and she turned blue. It's a long story, one that I don't have all the answers to, but she's an earth pony who could do really weird things.
An earth pony of blue, I cannot say, but my party did find a unicorn of gray. Have a number of watches over her to act as a protective chauffeur.
A unicorn? Rainbow Dash asked. That can't be Pinkie Pie, can it?
I don't think so, Applejack said with a huff on her chin. Pinkie's never grown a horn before, and I've never seen her turn gray neither.
You don't think those bulletins got her, do you?
Twilight asked Sakura fearfully. Sakura closed her eyes slowly, before turning back to her compatriots and conversed with them in their native Idube. Tellingly, she still shrined in her native tongue. Twilight flattened her ears, trying not to listen, in case there was some horrible fate that had befallen Pinkie that they were not privy to. Sakura faced Twilight once more. Both golden are savage, more or less. When they eat, they leave a bloody mess. But though we searched, myself and my friends, we found no proof of such a use in the end. It's possible your Pinkie Pie still survives, though we cannot await until she arrives. A party shall patrol around her this village, lest the Golden return to village. You half-dozen shall accompany me on the way back to the capital, see?
The capital?
Verity gasped, a broad smile on her face.
The capital of Ponyville itself? Why, I've heard such fabulous tales about the decor, the fasten, the je ne sais quoi of the place.
Sakura gave Rarity a slightly nervous smile. It seems you are eager to make the trip. Very well. To the cavern with a hop, jump, and a skip. The village proved to be far more secure now that the Bolgonan had fled to the outskirts, though Twilight's band still found themselves skittish about the shadows inside the abandoned houses and shops on the path. This village of Takaraka was abandoned a month past, Sakura explained, when the Bolgonans thought that the morning would never last. They sought the shade of a cheaper home, for we are far from the place of gloom.
The Twilight Zone?
Twilight asked, to which Sakura nodded. So, if you don't mind my asking, Sakura, Amazat began, how did y'all make that lion war to spoke off all them hyena varmints? Sakura winked slightly at Applejack. A trick of the trade of my Abada friends, to transform one's vocal cords from many ends. Abada? What you ponies call a unicorn, though with two horns they are adorned. The Mbawa fly, with no magic in their horns, for there is a magic to be airborne, and my kind are called the Quattro, and ours is the talent to help plants grow. So, you're just like us ponies, Applejack smiled. Well, don't I feel like a mule's uncle for assuming some funny things about... Well? Sakura nodded with an understanding smile. You find often that our greatest foe is merely what we believe to know. A mere 10 minutes later, they found themselves at the edge of the Chikakaka, facing a large caravan of wood ordinarily carved with the snarly faces of zebras. Verity shuddered at the sight of it.
Dear goodness, that looks quite forbidding.
'Tis merely a warning to fearsome beasts, who would see us all as nothing but feast. Now aboard, one and all. We have no time to lose. The Queen awaits us all, with no further time to snooze. Passing toward the front of the caravan, where a door awaited its guests into the interior space, half of Twilight's band let out a fearful shriek at the creature drawing it. What in tarnation is that thing? Applejack asked with a faint voice. It looked like an elephant, but there was no elephant that was green and scaly across its entire body, with ears more like a cobra's hood under its ram-like horns, or with a long serpentine tail, or with a snake's head at the end of its trunk. The creature which pulls our ride, though large, is a most excellent guide. A Grootslang he is, a most intelligent beast, smarter than any you will find to the west or east. The Grootslang slitted yellow eyes looked down at the band, who shivered in fright, but its gaze promptly returned to the front. Taking the moment to clear her throat, Twilight not so slightly silted into the caravan, with her band of 4 close behind.
Oh, Pinky, I'm so sorry. I hope that whatever you are, you're safe.
As soon as we finish hearing Queen Malkika out, we're winging back out here and coming to find you! But any further thought of Pinky was set to the side as Twilight took in the interior of the caravan. It was a single long space, dimly lit by grates in the ceiling. By light did Twilight see tapestries depicting various zebras of historical significance, performing acts of heroism against beasts current or extinct, divided by panels that apparently slid aside and allowed views of the passing forest. Along either of the long walls of the caravan were raised seats for any zebras to seat themselves upon, and one of them was already taken. In the back left of the caravan was seen what looked like to be a unicorn, whom Sakura was speaking of. She had an impossibly long white mane, though it did not look like to be white from age, but its own natural color. A large, flat gray alicorn poked out from the top of her head, but her body language told Twilight this was more of a defeated mare than any she had ever seen or heard. Her head hung low over the smooth wooden floor, her face completely covered by her mane, and her ears completely flat against her skull. Her tail, almost as long as her mane, curled around her slate gray haunches and covered her key mark from view. A small band of zebras stood apart from her, keeping watch over her, but giving her a wide berth. Upon sighting Twilight, they practically galloped toward the band at the exit.
"Oh, thank Queen Malekika you come," he gasped, encasing Idube. "She uses her magic to throw us against walls. She fills our heads with misery. She wants to be left alone. If you're here, she'll throw you against the walls, and fill your heads with misery instead."
And they not so politely pushed their way out of the caravan to join Sakura up on the Groot slang. Pride of Queen Malekika, those zebras are, Twilight grumbled, before making her way down the aisle to sit across from the miserable unicorn. Spike sat on Twilight's left, beckoning for Rarity to seat herself next to him, and finding herself once more disappointed by Applejack sitting next to him. Each of Twilight's friends sat in a row to her left, opposite the miserable gray unicorn.
"Little ray of sunshine, isn't she?"
Rainbow Dash muttered to Fluttershy, not bothering to keep her voice down. The gray unicorn started at her voice, but made no other sign she had heard the Pegasus. A shadow fell over one of the grates, and Sakura's voice came down.
"If you are all seated, it is time to depart. Do not be saddened, dear ponies. Take heart. Your normally pink friend our party will find, once your true location has been defined. On the good slang as the sweetest east lawyer, you'll be at the capital to meet someone royal."
The shadow faded, and in moments the band heard a sound of Idube, as the zebras doubtlessly ordered the Groot line to move forward. The caravan jolted into forward movement. The entire band pitched out of their seats, Twilight pitching towards the gray unicorn and knocking her off her seat as well. Coughing slightly, Twilight pushed herself up.
I'm so sorry. I wasn't expecting a jolt.
Her eyes drifted toward the slate gray, cone-shaped alicorn lying on the floor in front of her. It had a little silvery tuft of tinsel at the tip, like the tuft of a bright blue tinsel had been on the tip of a certain party hat Twilight had seen less than an hour ago. That was no alicorn. That, colored a miserable slate gray, was a party hat! She looked up at the slate gray earth pony with the impossibly long white mane. A kitty park of popped remains of 3 jet black balloons, and shadow sails around her barrel.
Pinky?
Lanky white hair parted seemingly of its own accord, and a blank white eye focused on Twilight in resentment. A jet black spiral radiated from a pinprick pupil.